Hello, everybody. Happy Sunday. Welcome to Learning Bigfoot. We are so glad to have you with us. There is a ton of amazing people in the chat I see. So we are here with the one and only Mark Newbill from Sawdustt Beast. Yay! Now, I'm so honored to have you here. I'm so excited because we had one heck of an awesome time in Brown Springs, and we're going to talk a little bit about that and also some more about your experiences that led you into this world of Bigfoot, because we learned a lot, and we learned a lot from you. And we appreciate all that wealth of knowledge because it came in handy.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when we first met up with everybody and we were out there, it was kind of a euphoric situation because we didn't know anybody. And so, well, we knew text from online, but that's
never met
as
anyone.
far as it went.
Yeah.
But the first night there, we're sitting around the campfire and I started unloading all the questions like colors, smells, things like this. And, you know, what would you tell people not to do for the first time out? And I paid attention because the very next day I was put to the test to see if I was paying attention, and I did. So I got to be proud about that moment. Mark, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming on.
Hey, I'm glad to be here. I'm amongst friends.
You Absolutely. Are. Yep.
So I guess we're going to start from the very beginning. Sawdustt Beast. How did that come to be?
Okay. I have always had a fascination with Bigfoot, UFOs, Loch Ness monsters, all of that as a kid. And then you get into life and things move along, and then you get into the workforce.
You got to pay bills.
Yeah.
You got to adult.
Right.
And it sucks.
But for 25 years, I worked a 7-day rotation swing shift.
Jeez.
And I'm telling you, those 25 years, it was a blur. And I had a medical issue and I was off work for a while, and I had time to have things sink in about the important things in life. And so I just wanted to be able to follow my passions, follow things that I was interested in. And I had told Shelley Reed that I want to get into this Bigfoot world. And I didn't know how to go about to get into it. And I told her, I said, you know what? I may just put an ad in the paper for anybody that wants to go out and look for Bigfoot, and we'll go out and start looking for Bigfoot. And it wasn't a couple of weeks later, and she had found a newspaper article of the Arkansas Bigfoot Conference. So me and her rode out there, went to it, listened to people. There were different groups. I ended up joining 2 groups right there, and everything kind of followed after that. And I've been very fortunate that I have had a lot of knowledgeable people take me under their wings. And, you know, I think about Bear and Kumbo and their knowledge and experiences. I think about Dan Rickey and Vicky Fulcher and the things that they have taught me. And, you know, I think about Bear and Kumbo and their knowledge and experiences. I think about Dan Rickey and Vicky Fulcher and the things that they have taught me. And, you know, I think about Bear and Kumbo and their knowledge and experiences. I think about Dan Rickey and Vicky Fulcher and the things that they have taught me. And Matthias Tipton, Kane Michael, because Larry and I really research the same way that those guys did, but they had 5 or 6 years on us. And so we learned so much from them two guys. And I'm very grateful for all of the people that has helped me along the way.
Well, and I kind of feel like it might have been a similar situation to how we felt with you guys. Like, again, what I mean by that is that first night I was sitting around the campfire with you guys and I was asking you those questions. You know, is deodorant, cologne, perfume, is that preferred, not preferred? Colors of shirts. And I was told that the color red is the most common type shirt for disappearances and things like that. And, you know, I asked you guys, I can't remember how I phrased it, but I asked you, what is the one thing that you would tell new people not to do? And I don't think that question has been asked a whole lot, but it just came to me. Ask this question. And one of the first things you guys said is, don't point and start shouting out, did you see that? Did you see that? And making a thing out of it, because that immediately makes them just disappear. And I was put to the test.
You know, I have reviewed thousands of hours of audio. And one thing that you will hear whenever there's a vocalization in the distance is every time somebody will go, did you hear that? And so that's why when you asked that question, I said, these are things that you can practice when you're not in the field. You can be in the grocery store and some kid can drop a gallon of milk, you know, on the floor, and that explosion sound it makes. Practice not spinning around and looking, but watch everybody else spin around and look. And so
that's a good idea.
when things are getting thrown at you, or you're hearing things that are close by, you're hearing trees come crashing down around you, they know that you're there and they are watching you. And so, and they're looking for your reaction. And so just sit there and act like nothing is going on. But yet your ears, you'll notice all of your senses are pumping on 8 cylinders, you know, and because you've already got audio recorders out, you got plot watchers out, and you know that it's not like you got to jump up and run to your hammock and grab something and start setting things up, because you've set it up from the time that you've made it into your camp.
So did I pass the test?
You did pass the test.
Because I actually sat there and waited until Tex was finished telling his story before I even said anything.
Yeah.
You know, just because I was still watching. I was still waiting to see if anything else was going to happen, but nothing did. But my first reaction was holy cow, I just saw something.
Yeah.
Just don't do it. Don't do it. Just shut up.
And then afterwards, the reaction from everybody else was 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, I may have waited a little too long, but I was still watching for whatever. So
that's cool. You did good.
But no, I mean, so you know, you learning from those guys was probably a lot like us learning from you guys, because we're coming into it with really no clue short of conversations we've had on these kind of shows, and you know, with a variety of different people. And obviously we've been out camping before, but we hadn't been out camping with a purpose, if that makes sense. And so when we came out to film, and I think one of the switches for us is we weren't focusing so much on trying to scan and look for activity or Bigfoot. We were focusing our cameras on you guys.
Right.
So we were trying to capture what you guys were doing, how you were conducting yourself. But even with that kind of a mentality that you guys are our subjects, we were still experiencing our own things. And does that surprise you, or does that not surprise you?
No, it doesn't. And I was not surprised at y'all's professionalism. And I think that the years that y'all have spent doing this, it's the same format. It's the same thing. And so it was really good to be out with people that were filming, that were not getting in the way. I didn't, I don't know. You didn't have to be told what to do. Uh, we, uh, we kind of around the campfire would kind of talk about what to expect if, if some type of activity ramps up, and y'all did fantastic.
Well, we absolutely appreciate that, and we're very grateful to hear that. Just to slide this in for anybody else out there who would be interested in having us come and film one of their expeditions, we are open to the possibility, because the Brown Springs was our very first time out.
Yeah.
And so we were fresh off the block. We got attacked by mosquitoes. I was chased into the Jeep with coyotes.
Yeah, we did.
Our dog kind of just learned how to dig. But if other people out there are interested in actually having us come out on one of their expeditions, feel free to email us at tipatvofficial@gmail.com, and we'll talk and we'll see if we're a good fit and what we can put together. Now, Mark, I think you would agree too that having the right crew, having the right group of people with the right mentality is essential for these environments as well.
It is. And I have been fortunate enough that I have taken over 50 people out on their first experience into going into the woods and looking for Bigfoot. And I really consider that a blessing. I take that responsibility serious. The first and foremost, it's safety.
Mm-hmm.
I know one time we were on a bridge in Carroll County, Mississippi, and we had some new guys that were with us. It was probably about a dozen of us, and there wasn't but 4 experienced people there, and they had shut this bridge down. And so you had to actually go into the woods and basically come up through the woods onto part of this bridge to get onto the bridge. And it was dangerous. And I just kept thinking, man, if one of these guys break and run, somebody's going to get hurt. And I remember assigning a guy that his responsibility was to watch everyone. And if somebody had got that 1,000-yard stare in their eyes and it looked like they were about to break camp, I told them, I said, you tackle them before they could even shoot for that exit to get off that bridge. And because we thought we were having activity there, but it really wasn't. It was because of the thermals that were reflecting off of 2 signs that were on that bridge, and it looked like boogers in front of us, but it was actually everybody that was moving around on that bridge. But it was coming through that thermal, looking like it was a bunch of Bigfoot 25 feet out in front of us. and I'm going to tell you, some people got really, really nervous.
I bet.
And one of the jobs that I had given a guy was I'd given him a camcorder, and I had 2 tactical lights that was on this camcorder. And I said, something happened, you flip it on, you hit the record button, you hit the lights, and you start filming. And so while all this stuff's going on, he just standing there holding this light like that down to his side. And I reached down, and instead of touching the camera, I touched his hand, and he threw up right there. And this guy about 300 pounds, he's third generation law enforcement. He's a man's man.
Well,
Nice.
Even the man's man in these environments, you could still be challenged. But one of the things you said too that I don't think I've ever heard it before, but I've heard you say it a few times since. Sorry. Is you tell everybody, don't run, prey runs, and I don't want to be prey. See, I heard you say that the first time when we were at the bottom of the hill at night, and that stuck with me. That really did, because in my head I started picturing, yeah, you're right. If you watch all these National Geographics and you watch all these other videos, the prey is always the one that takes off, but the other ones that stand their ground, they're the ones who's like, I'm right here.
Yeah.
I'll just make it louder, and I'll try to make myself look bigger.
Yeah.
So, but that stuck with me. It really did.
Well, that's why it was really important that we stuck together. And I asked Gary Sr., thanks, Mike's Adventures. Man,
thank you so much.
Mike's a great guy. I
He
just
really
want to throw
is.
that in. He's a great guy.
Absolutely.
And we have to go paint a house someday. Long story. We'll share it later.
But it was really important to stress the fact that we stuck together. And I asked Gary Sr. if he would be our head counter. And probably every 5 minutes I'd turn around and say, how many heads, Gary? Because you don't want, I'm going to tell you, I'll be honest, I'm bad about wandering off. I am. I'm thinking, I'm gonna ease over here a little bit.
I wander off in a grocery store. Can you imagine? I wander everywhere.
With TIPA TV business cards. I've seen it for myself.
They end up in the craziest of places, don't they?
That's right. We went grocery shopping together. We wandered, didn't we?
Yeah.
I forgot.
But whenever you have a group of people that have not that there wasn't anybody that was inexperienced, but people that have not worked together. And that's why I thought that, this is important that we stick together as a group. And that's why I said, if somebody, that was a pretty rough area, that cemetery, to get into. The hill we had to climb, and the gullies, and just one misstep, and you could twist an ankle, you roll down it, or whatever. And that's why I said, if something happens, we go up as a team and we come down as a team. And then when we get to the bottom, then we'll reevaluate, and then we'll go back up as a team again. But that's very important.
It absolutely is. And I mean, again, I appreciate the way that you kind of planned it all out before we went up the hill and everything. What a lot of people don't realize, and especially people in the Bigfoot community who's new to our channel and new to us, is we actually ran a paranormal team for a very long time. And it wasn't just, hey, let's go in with our bags and just kind of wander aimlessly. We had it planned out ahead of time perfectly, to where each person, we had uniforms, so we already had the appearance of professionalism, and we all knew our jobs as soon as we got onto location. So people knew to grab the cameras and tripods, other people knew to grab the batteries and the cables, other people knew to grab the audio equipment. Somebody who's setting up base knew how to set up the base. And we didn't even have to talk to each other as a team when we got onto a location, because everybody knew exactly what their role was. And it just, you get there, you get it done, and then you have the meeting afterwards to decide, okay, well, what could we improve on the next one? What can we do without on the next one? And our team actually got pretty well, very well respected in our community. A lot of
Yeah.
people actually came to us for advice and came to us for recommendations and things along those lines. The irony is, and I think you're going to appreciate this because I believe Sawdustt Beast is a lot like this. The irony is that our team was initially not designed to be a paranormal team. We were tech support for the local paranormal teams. So we were offering our equipment and everything's out else to go out, set it up for the investigation for the paranormal group, record everything, and then hand them the footage after we were done, and then let them review it and let them determine whether or not what they wanted it to explain to the client. The irony came in to where people started coming to us directly and saying, I want you to come out, not with another paranormal group. I want you to be the group to come out. And see, I believe everybody in a team, you focus on their strong points. My strong point is obviously tech support, running equipment, making things work that weren't necessarily designed to work together, make them work together. I knew I didn't have the skill set for doing a lot of deep research. I knew I didn't have the skill set for going out and finding locations. I knew there's a lot of skill sets that I didn't really carry or I really wasn't strong at. That's when I started bringing in other team members that had those strengths. That's how I met Marianne. It's because not only did she have the sensitive abilities, but she was hella good at doing research and just pulling up. She'd bring stacks of papers about a location and be able to share a lot of the information. That's not one of my skill sets, but it brought value to the team. And then eventually we became our own team and we ran for quite a long time. Now, I believe you explained to me that, or in that documentary, I believe you talked about how you wanted to teach people a certain skill set so you could know where to set up more camps.
Yes. Our main research area is LBL, land between the lakes. And it's kind of known as the beast of LBL. And if you've never heard of it, only thing you got to do is Google it. And all this stuff's going to come up and all these reports. And so one thing that we like doing is we will usually have a base camp. And then from the base camp, some of us will go out into the woods and throw up hammocks and just sit there and see what happens. And the first thing that we will do is we will study the topographical maps, and so that we can put ourselves hopefully in a position, if there's any Bigfoot around, that maybe that is a part of their corridor that they will travel. And then we will take the low ground and give them the high ground. So we will go down into the bottoms. And for me, sometimes you have to think like a Bigfoot. And what would be comfortable for a wild animal is where they're higher than you, and it gives them where they can feel safer about coming in closer, that they can come in and they have an exit to get out. And so that's kind of our strategy when we go out like that.
And see, having that kind of an approach, I think is obviously well thought out and planned out. And again, you're still considering all the safety avenues that you could possibly consider in that type of an environment. But I also know there's a lot of things that we still aren't familiar with. Because I mean, yeah, we had a background with ghost hunting. We're learning a lot more about urban exploring. In fact, we really put ourselves to the test because after we went to Brown Springs with you guys and filmed that, we turned around immediately, and the very next week we were exploring an underground missile silo.
you know, I'm just going to interrupt you there. And if the audience has not gone and watched that, it is amazing. And what stands out to me is when y'all were inside of that missile, and that was dangerous in there. And can you just imagine if somebody freaked out and was to take out running, you know, and the young lady that was nervous about crossing the beam, and there was a little bit of expanded metal, but just the idea of it was like walking a plank. And what Mary Ann did in encouraging that lady, that is so positive, and that's a mentor. And I just have to commend you, Mary Ann. What an excellent job you did to give encouragement where she could cross that beam. It was amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, she was very nervous, and at first was saying, "I'm just going to stay up here and I'll wait for you guys to explore." We had no idea how big this place was actually going to be. Like, in fact, I thought it was going to be just that main room, and then maybe a couple little. I didn't realize we were miles and miles of tunnels everywhere. She would have been up there forever. And there's no way I'm going to leave. You know, you don't leave your teammates. You know, you don't leave someone standing there by themselves and being afraid of heights and having that anxiety and stuff. I'm like, hey, girl, we're going to do this together. We're going to do it. I'm going to be there the whole step of the way. I walked all the way back to grab her and just come back over.
And it didn't make the full edit, but you could hear everybody cheering when she made it across. You could hear everybody cheering. Get further inside this base, and all of a sudden, that girl is the one who's jumping in front of us, hopping on the beams and starting to go. It's like,
I'm like,
slow down, you know. We still got to be safe here, so don't.
Right. But because the further we got in, the harder it was to. I mean, we had water. We were traversing over these pipes and bars and things, and like we weren't going to be running out of anywhere. Like,
Yeah, but the fact is that, I mean, we went from Brown Springs, and then we actually, on our way home from Brown Springs, we had a crazy situation in the middle of the night on a road somewhere in Colorado. We don't even know where we were, but we ended up getting chased by some guy for like 150
It was like 150 miles.
We were running, and our Jeep was already broken down, so it sounds like a tank going down the street. Just but we got away from him, you know. And then we get home, charge our batteries, dump our memory cards, get on the ball, hop on the road, head back out there for UrbexCon, and then we're inside this missile silo. So I mean,
we were home for like a day and a half.
I didn't even really look at the Brown Springs footage until we got back from Colorado. But you know, but I want to get it back on track with you. But yeah, if you haven't seen it, go check it out. So with your experience at Brown Springs while we were there, what is probably one of the most memorable moments for you?
Okay, the most memorable moment, and it's like this everywhere I go. It's around the campfire. It's around making new friends, seeing old friends. And I remember telling everybody I would not want to be nowhere else but right here with these people. And because for me, everybody has their own reasons for getting out and looking for Bigfoot.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be everything from wanting to get that $1 million video. It could be the experience of getting out there, the unknown. Everybody has their own agenda.
Mm.
And I think a lot of times people might look down on somebody else's agenda for getting out there, but I don't. For me, I love the adrenaline rush of when things start ramping up, when trees start crashing around you, when things start getting thrown at you, when you're hearing grunts and vocalizations. That's what I'm out there for, is the adrenaline rush. I am not trying to prove that Bigfoot exists. That's not why I'm out there for. I'm out there to have these experiences with my friends.
That's awesome.
Well, we did have one experience, though, that was non-supernatural related. When we were flying the drone, flew the drone around, landed it. A few minutes later, I went down to get some B-roll, and all of a sudden a military jet just skimmed the top of the trees right above us. It's like, that's the only time it did it, too.
Yeah.
It was amazing because it was just a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
And this jet took the same flight pattern right over our camp, and it was treetop level.
Yes, it was.
And you could see his uniform, and it was wild. It was like,
I was kind of upset that it was going fast enough where I couldn't get a camera out and even just shoot it to prove we had seen it, because it was, it was there and then it wasn't, that was it.
Yeah. Yeah.
We all just have to vouch and say we saw it. That's, that's all we got.
We do have a comment from author Marianne Guestwicki. I want to see that drone footage. Go to the documentary, watch the very beginning of it, because that's the drone footage of it. So,
yeah.
But I mean, for me, I think for my most memorable moment while we were out there, I mean, yeah, I could say when I saw that thing drop down and I saw the branches bouncing, but that really wasn't it. I think for me, is very much like what you were saying, sitting around the campfire with everybody, talking, learning people's personalities, hearing people's stories. I'd have to agree, because for me, that was probably the most memorable moment that's really going to stick with me, because we didn't know any of you guys, and you guys didn't know us. And so I think it was the night that Jason got there, and we were all sitting around and eating the food, and our dog was trying to claim Tex as his master and all that. But we all just
he was
sat
being
around.
bribed.
We all just sat around, we all talked, we all shared stories, we all shared opinions, but nobody was judging nobody. Everybody was letting everybody speak. And it was just like, it almost seems like we had been friends for a very long time.
Yeah.
That's really what it felt like. And I again, going back to what I said earlier, I think having the right people in your group or in your camp is essential to be able to focus on what you're there for.
Yeah.
So I want to tell you, I'm grateful that you came.
Yes.
And I'm grateful that Christine hit up Tex and said, hey, can I bring him out? Because, I mean, you brought so much to the table.
I agree.
I think there would have been a lot missing if you hadn't have been there with us.
I agree.
It's kind of funny that, when she called me, she says, Mark, I don't know who these people are. And I'm afraid to show up with, a bunch of strangers. I'm a woman. And so she was alluding to the fact that, I don't want to show up at a place where there's a bunch of perverts. Little did she know she was talking to one right then.
So can I bring an extra one that I actually know?
That's funny.
But that's what this is about. It's about good times. Larry Porch will always go, good times, because how much, I mean, you need to enjoy life and be around people that you like and that like you, and just to be able to spend a weekend with them. And there was nothing negative about this outing. And I have been on hundreds of outings, and I've been on some nightmare outings, but this was an awesome outing that we were on.
I think the only negative thing I experienced there was all the mosquitoes trying to kill us in the middle of the night. That's, I think, the only thing.
Disco lights going on in the Jeep, right?
I know it.
It looks like a big old crime scene with blood splatter everywhere in the Jeep. They're like, kill them.
You know, me and Randy and Todd were just talking just 20 feet from y'all's Jeep. And that light come on and all that's slapping going on. And I remember looking at Randy going, man, they're a little cakey, aren't they?
No, we were trying to stay alive.
Yeah,
That's funny.
It was hot, and see, I'll try to condense the story, but we were sleeping in the back of the Jeep. Us and our dog was back there, and lights were off. We're laying down. Earlier, she suggested I crack one of the windows open so it can breathe.
Because it was very, very hot.
And I'm laying there, and all I'm hearing is her just saying, stupid mosquito. And I'm like, what? She's like, I just heard it buzz my ear. And then a couple minutes later, stupid mosquito. I was like, really? And then I'm laying there, and then all of a sudden I heard it buzz my ear. And then one of us got the bright idea to turn our flashlights on. And when we turned it on, looked at the ceiling, the entire ceiling was covered with mosquitoes.
They were waiting to attack.
They were all just staring at us. And I'm not exaggerating. The ceiling was covered with mosquitoes.
Yeah.
So we sat there for a while just grabbing tissues and trying to smash them all and kill them all. And it left a lot of evidence on the top. We think we get most of them. We shut off the lights. We lay back down. Hear a couple more, turn on the light again, and they were all replaced with new ones.
Oh my gosh, it was so bad.
So,
now, mind you, I am legally blind without my contacts in, and my contacts were out. I was going to sleep, so I had to go by a lot of sound and hope that I was hitting the right spot. There were so many, I was still hitting them because I couldn't miss.
But I got to thank you and thank Tex, though, because you guys set us up the following night.
Yes.
It actually allowed us to get some decent sleep. And that tent that you guys got for us, man, it was the coolest thing in the world because I had a doggy door.
Yeah.
I opened it up, shoved the dog out, closed it up. But yeah, I mean, with that experience, and then you had a hammock experience too, if I remember right.
Yeah, I got spit. I consider myself a expert when it comes to hammocks from all the years that I've used them. But I've never used a single hammock. I've always had double hammocks. And so you don't sink down into it. And you're just kind of on the edge of it. And I had gotten up and went to get back in it, and that thing spit me out. And I thought, I landed on my head. And I heard bones in my neck pop, crack. And I thought, okay, wiggle your toes and move your fingers. And I thought, well, I'm going to be aching in the morning. And I thought, I am not going to try to get back in this thing. And so I walked over to the tent that Christine was staying in. I said, give me them car keys. And I went and slept in the car. And the next night, Todd Neese went to sleep in it, and it spit him out.
Yeah, I think that hammock had issues with people.
Yeah.
But now I did see a question in the chat, but I'm going to actually flip it around. So David, what's that say? BLG.
Blaylock, David Blaylock.
Blaylock wants to know what our best evidence we've ever filmed, but I actually want to bounce that over to Mark. What is some of the best? Now, I don't like using the term evidence because I'm not really proving anything, but for this scenario, we'll go with what do you feel is some of the best evidence you've captured?
I believe it's been more audio because we at Sawdustt Beast we're audio folks, and the vocalizations that we have captured. I remember up at Salt Fork when Matthias Tipton and Kane Michael took us up there. Man, we had activity all the way into it. Took 2 hours to hike in to this, and everything that you've got to live on for 3 or 4 days has to be in this backpack. And that's food, shelter, water. And for 2 hours, we got all this activity paralleling us in there. And then the things that happened at night, the vocalizations going on, things moving in and around camp. And all of us kind of thrive on that adrenaline. I was with some good people on that camp out. And just to tell how we are at camp and how we don't take ourselves serious, that Kane Michael, he pulled out a pendulum and he held it up. And he asked, he says, is Matthias Tipton going to die tonight? And that thing started moving. And you don't think we started ribbing him about dying that night? You know, we don't take ourselves serious. We have fun. We do collect possible evidence out there, but most of it is audio. I mean, you've got to think that these creatures, they're intelligent. They're self-aware, unlike other animals that are in the forest. They are self-aware of what's going on. And they're just not, if they expose themselves to you, then there is a reason. And you're not, unless you get lucky and happen to see one cross a road in front of you. But most of the times, that's 90% of sightings. But then you look at Kerry Arnold and what happened to him out there. And that creature knew exactly what it was doing when it exposed himself to Kerry, knowing that them turkeys were about to come out, and knowing that was Kerry's intent, was he was there to turkey hunt. And so, but most of the time, they're not going to let you see them. They spend their whole lives avoiding humans, but their Achilles heel is, and this is my opinion, they are curious animals. They're very curious, and they want to watch the humans. I have said for years, we're their TV, we're their entertainment. And so The thing, what you have to do is put yourself in an area where they might possibly be.
Well, this I gotta say that the audio is one thing that I learned on the Brown Springs trip. I never considered that a Bigfoot would mimic other sounds. I mean, it makes sense when you talk about it, like it makes sense. I just would never have come up with that on my own. And to hear some audio, you can tell there is a difference. Just like you can tell it sounds like it, but if you're not paying attention, you just glaze past it. That was huge for me. That was just mind-blowing for me to learn.
Or if you're not familiar with the exact sounds that they make. Because see, we were in a place where we didn't recognize the sounds that the animals made and everything. And I just want to do a quick answer to him because he was asking us. I would say watch our channel, because are you referring to the ghostly? Are you referring to Randonautica? Are you referring to urban exploring? I mean, we put ourselves in some pretty interesting situations across the board, and we've done some not so smart things, and we've survived because we're still here. But just watch some of our videos. I think you'll be surprised at some of the stuff we pulled off, because missile silo, really, come on, think about it. It was a 5-hour explore that I cut down to 2 hours, put it that way. But speaking about audio, I believe you have some audio clips that you want to share with us.
Okay, I will pull this one up, and before you play it, I'll just give the backstory on it.
Okay.
We were on a group outing in the Appalachians, and one of our good friends, Spencer Jameson, it was the first time that he came out with us. He was invited, and he came out, and he was going to have to leave a day early. So Larry and Debbie wanted to take him into the bush and sleep in hammocks away from the main base camp. Now, we had so much activity that was going on, and every time we've been there, we've had activity happen. But this particular weekend, we had like 6 trees come crashing down around us, and where they had hiked. Now, they hiked in at night, and they hiked in and set up their little camp, sleeping in hammocks, and you can play the audio and you can hear what happens.
All right, here we go.
That was a tree, right?
Uh-huh. That was a tree. A lot of them seem to do that around here.
That was a really big tree.
Yes, it was.
Oh, I love it. You must have a boring life. It's great, man.
That was a really, really, really big tree.
Okay, I'm going to play the beginning of that one again, just so we could all hear it. So that noise at the very beginning, that loud noise, was the tree falling?
That was the tree coming, crashing down, and it was really close to them.
So scary.
So I'm just going to play the tree falling part again, so we could all hear that.
That was a tree, right?
Wow.
That would make me jump out of my seat quicker than... I'm sorry. Our conversation earlier about, hey, don't react, that would make me react, because I'd be thinking something's coming at me. Wow, that's crazy.
That is. It's lucky they didn't hit him.
And you can hear how nonchalant they were, you know, when that happened. And I was in the base camp, and we could hear that tree come crashing down and from base camp. And I was just looking in the direction. I said, man, that's in that same direction they went into the woods at, and
Did you go back out there the next day and get some pictures or take video or find the tree in the first place?
no, we did. I'm going to tell you, and Larry Porch kind of coined this, that we are just jaded. A lot of people that they will be driving down the road and they will see a tree bow and they will stop the car and jump out and take pictures and go live and put it all on the internet, and we have all this stuff happen to us, and it's just like we're so jaded. I mean, it's just, we had it on audio, and we got all of the trees that come crashing down that weekend, on audio, and it's just nobody actually saw the creature push the tree down, so we can't say that a Bigfoot pushed it down. But how many times have you heard a tree start snapping and come crashing down? And then here we had 6 of them that weekend doing that. No wind, no rain,
That's suspicious.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Well, I have a feeling like we are going to get more exposed to these. And again, for anybody who's new to the chat, who didn't hear me state this earlier, Brown Springs was our very first time out there filming for any of these expeditions. We do want to get out there. We do want to do more. We are talking still with Kerry Arnold about going out and helping film his another upcoming 168. But we want to go out there and we want to get more experiences too ahead of time, so we can put these together and really deliver the experience to you guys to the utmost possibility that we can. We are still learning. We're still learning about tree breaks. We are learning about animal sounds. We are learning about how to and not to react. I think Mark can agree, though. We are sponges. You tell us it sticks, and we listen to it and we follow through with it. We do try our best to stay out of your way, let you do what you want to do, and we're just trying to film you while you're in action. We do interact sometimes, but for the most part, we like to just keep our mouth shut and keep the camera on you guys. So if you are interested in reaching out to us and talking about us going out on an expedition with you, or I mean, I would love to go out and see this LBL place that Mark keeps talking about.
Oh yeah.
Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. But send us an email to tipatvofficial@gmail.com. You could find that email listed on this live stream or on our about section. You can find our email if you look, and just let us know that you'd be interested in having us come out and doing these with you guys as well, because we're addicted. I guess that's the best way to put it, is we're addicted. So,
well, I know it's a long drive from Utah, but when we have, most people call them meet and greets, but me and Larry are fat, and so we call them meet and eats. And but y'all are welcome to come to that, because you'll have different teams going out in different directions and people doing different things. I mean, the last one we had 30 something people there, and they came from all over. I mean, they came from Nebraska and Texas, Missouri and Kansas. Christine flew in from Florida, and people came in from all over. And that's where Shelley Reed found the Reed Noble Trackway there. And that was an awesome trackway. For me personally, I have seen impressions. I have seen prints in the field, but I've never had a desire for me personally to cast one, because for me, what that tells me is if I find some possible prints in the middle of nowhere, it tells me I've done my homework right. I have studied the topographical maps. I have the different things that I have learned over the years, things I've learned myself, things that have been taught to me. It tells me I put myself in that spot and I found that print. I'm where I need to be. But these prints that Shelley and Patrick Noble found, they were awesome because they were in mud. And as far as juvenile prints, there had to have been 100 of them out there.
Wow.
And there was at least a dozen good adult Bigfoot prints.
That's a jackpot.
Yeah. And we casted those, and I even said we got to cast these because you just imagine an 800-pound animal stepping in mud, and what it leaves behind. The details were just awesome.
Wow.
Well, see, that's why I like being the camera crew, because I carry enough of my own gear. I'm not going to make a cast of a foot and pack that thing out too, especially if it's like a 2-day hike in. I'll let you guys do that. I'll just film you doing it.
I would do that. I carry enough souvenirs.
She'd bring back a backpack full of rocks.
Yeah. And I have.
She has brought back a backpack full of rocks. But people like these. People like those little souvenirs. I mean, when we're in that silo, she likes to pick up like a bolt or something, and then we put it up for auction. Say, hey, you want a bolt from a underground missile silo?
Yeah.
That's epic. Don't tell me that ain't epic. That's awesome. Yeah. That's why I do it. I go out 10 pounds heavier.
We found a life raft inside
yes,
of that
we did.
silo too.
I wasn't taking that out.
It wasn't about to
I was
pack
leaving that
out,
there.
though.
There's no way.
She thought about it, but no.
Not in.
Anyway, so it looks like you have something else for us. What are we about to show them now?
Okay, I'm not really sure, but this is where we were at LBL and we were doing some calls, and I'll give the backstory after it plays. I was having problems trying to find stuff with this StreamYard and going, I've got like 6 hard drives hooked up to my computer, because you fill them up doing audio, and but we'll just play it, and then I'll give the backstory after it's over with.
All right, here it goes. Okay, what was that?
That was from Salt Fork. Now, this is where it took us 2 hours to hike into this area. We're on the edge of a cliff. There's nowhere to run. There's nowhere to hide if something bad happens. They were getting pissed off at us. For one thing, people don't go in there as deep as we went in. And then we're staying for days in there. And that was capture. Larry actually heard that laying in his hammock. I was probably snoring. And then we went back and we reviewed the audio, and you can just listen to it. I mean, that's almost like a language.
It sounded like it. Yeah. I'm going to run it a couple more. I'm going to let it loop a couple of times so everybody can hear it. So Let me get my mouse working again because it has issues. Okay, I'm going to do that one more time, but my mouse just kind of went stupid. Yeah, blame the mouse. Not
No,
the
it is the
operator.
mouse. I'm watching.
Yeah, okay. Well,
I hope that I'm telling the right backstory, because I'm gonna. One thing that I've got to say is all of these outings and all of these things that happen, they blend together.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you think about that. You know, you spend 35, 40 days out in the field, you know, during a year, and you've got all this stuff, and like I have researched in, I don't know, 15, 16 states, and things will over the years, my memory is not the best, and they will just it's a blur almost, you know, they'll blend together, but that is some audio that was captured.
That's amazing.
That's why he has 6 hard drives hooked up.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I can honestly say, I feel you.
Yeah.
I feel you. I know what it's like. I mean, I still have footage from back when one of my very first paranormal investigations. I still have footage of the very first time I met her on an investigation.
Yep.
So I don't throw anything away either. So obviously over time stuff builds up, and now that we're filming in 4K,
Yeah.
and one of the things I do want to brush across also is the fact that during one of your shows, I believe I was in the chat, I was just asking questions because I kind of already knew, but I just kind of wanted to put it out there so people who didn't know would know. Understanding the format that you record in is very, very important, because you were talking about audio. Then I asked what format you record your audio in. Would you like to dive into that just a little bit to kind of explain the differences to people?
Well, the best format that you can use is WAVE. Now, everything has its pros and cons. Now, the con is it uses so much data where I'm trying to think how to explain it right. You will only be able to record like 48 hours if you record using the WAVE format. But so that's a good short-term recorder that if you're just going in for a couple of days to use. But a lot of times what we do is if we study the topographical maps and find a place that we want to just see what happens when we're not there, then we will go in and record using MP3. Now, using lithium batteries, you can get about 110 hours, depending on the ambient temperature that's out there. If it's really, really cold, you're not going to get that. Now, I have found some Indian tricks, like wrapping the recorder like in insulation to help protect the batteries. But when you can capture a week's worth of audio in an area that you know humans are not in the equation of coming in and coming out, then you can go back a week later and you pull that recorder and start analyzing it and looking for possible Bigfoot noises, whether if it's tree knocks, whether if it's actual vocalizations. I remember there's a cemetery, an 18th century cemetery at LBL. One of them. There's like 227 of them. But Larry and I were going into this area where we have been having a lot of finding good stuff in there. And so we had set that recorder out. We come back 5-6 days later and to pick up the recorder. Well, when I analyzed it, that recorder was still going when I picked it up. And you can hear his vehicle crunching on that gravel as it's moving into that area. And we could only go so far in, and then we had a hike about 30 minutes. But when that vehicle pulled in and it stopped, and then we got out of the vehicle and started hiking towards that, we didn't hear it with our ears at the time, but the recorder picked it up. A tree knock. It sounded like Mark McGuire just hit a grand slam.
Wow.
And so, I mean, all you can do is speculate, but could there have been a Bigfoot that was there and heard the humans pulling in there and getting out, and the hiking into that area? Was that a Bigfoot that was warning the other Bigfoot in the area? There's humans headed this way.
Yeah, clear out.
Yeah. It kind of makes me wonder because of the back at camp experience that we had where, you and Randy went walking down and I could have sworn I heard a cross between like a grunt and a whoop at the same time. And I thought, is there some signal going on here? Like, hey, they're coming sort of a thing. It makes you wonder. Because clearly there is some sort of communication. They have to. They're intelligent. They need, and they are so tight knit. The fact that they are so stealthy and you can have one over here and one over there, and there's a distraction over here. So you think there's only one, but you're surrounded and you have no idea. They can't do that without communicating somehow.
Yeah. Yeah.
I believe juveniles too. I believe the juveniles are the ones that are out there most of the time, kind of showing up in the broad daylight and getting close. And I believe that the juveniles are probably engaging more than the more adult ones, at least in a lot of different situations. Maybe at night when you're at a campfire, it might be different because you're being surrounded, but you might be surrounded by juveniles. Most of these sightings could possibly be juveniles. I don't know. But if you think about that as a juvenile standpoint,
rebellious.
Yeah.
I'm going to do what I want.
Mom and dad is going to whoop their butts when they get back to their little cave or whatever they live in. But
then they're going to put some whoop on them too.
but to touch base back a little bit on the audio thing, you explained it perfectly. The wave format .wav, it records audio, but it doesn't have it compressed nearly as much. So it means it retains a lot more of the detail.
Yeah.
So when you're going through and you're analyzing it and you're focusing on it, you're getting a lot more detail out of that recording than if you was getting it out of an MP3 format, which is what most devices default as is MP3, because they want you to think you got 3 decades worth of storage space when you don't.
Yeah.
And so we actually understood that from when we were doing the EVP sessions in the ghost hunting field, and we would do a lot of stuff like that. One of the tricks that we would do though is we would set up multiple recorders in specific distances from each other. And so if one recorder picks something up, we'd be able to match it up with the other 2 recorders and see if we could determine which recorder the sound was closest to.
We do that also. We call it triangulating. And that way, if you've got 3 recorders that are in like a triangle, then the recorder that picks it up the loudest, then you know where to go back and put the next recorder and then triangulate in a little bit different direction and see if you can catch it moving through that area. But yeah, that's
very
a
smart.
great strategy.
Yeah, so smart.
Brilliant. I love it. But yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on who's going out there and what their intention is for going out there. I kind of agree with you that I'm not going out there to prove anything. And I mentioned earlier, I don't like using the word evidence, because even in the ghost hunting field and everything else, I hated the term evidence, because evidence of what? Who's going to take this recording I got and say, you have proved that ghosts exist. Here you go. Here's your award. Here's your money. Congratulations. Nobody's going to do that.
Yeah.
I always use the term points of interest. So what I would say is I had 3 different points of interest that took place in the same hour. Here are the different things that took place. Take with it what you will. And that's what I was known for, is points of interest, not evidence.
I like that, because I hate the word researcher. And I'm just a hobbyist. I mean, I'm not no scientist. I try to study scientific ways to prove if I have a theory about something. But it's for my own benefit. It's not to impress the masses,
Right.
It's for my own benefit, because the masses aren't going to be 4 miles deep with me whenever things start happening.
Absolutely.
Now, Mark, I got a question. I know we're past an hour and everything, but I had to jump out of the panel a little early the other night, and I never got to ask this, but you are the perfect person to run this by, because you've had extensive experience, much more than us, and the fact that you deal in the audio. One thing that nobody really knows other than him, when we were on our Brown Springs expedition, there was a period of time, and I can't remember exactly when it was, but I was pretty much at camp by myself. It was during the day. I mean, people were around, but not in the vicinity. I think you were on a walk with Randy. I'm not sure. Anyway, it doesn't matter. In the woods, I started hearing what sounded to me like, at first, big animal, like a deer. I was hearing the crunching of the leaves and the twigs and stuff like that. And there was some leaf falling and things. So I'm very calmly, very quietly walking down that pathway, that trail. And I stopped right in the middle of, before it bends and our camp. So I got a big range that I can kind of experience from. And in this one particular area, it seemed like something very, very big was moving in, probably about, I don't know, 30 feet from me. I mean, it wasn't that far. Big. I didn't see anything. And I felt like I should have seen something, because it was very, very loud. I mean, it was loud enough that you're like, I should be seeing. So I was looking up, I was looking down, I was looking over. Does that ring a bell to you in any way, that I would hear something of that size, or what it seemed like, but not see anything?
That is a characteristic that not just myself, but people across this country, and I'm sure abroad, that these creatures will parallel you. And so I remember being out, I was taking out a group that had never been out before. It was a meet and greet with a different organization, and there was teenagers there. And so I kind of just stopped the group, and I said, okay, we're going to start walking again in single file, and I want everybody to count their steps. We're going to take 35 steps, and everybody's going to stop. And that's where you can catch them if they're paralleling you in the woods, because all of a sudden you stop and you hear one or two more steps, close by. And so that's a pretty good tactic to use, but you very well something could have been paralleling you out there.
Now, if I was, once I was standing still, it went quiet. But like you said, now I didn't move for probably a good 10 minutes. I mean, I just wanted to see and hear. And after probably another couple of minutes, I did hear it again, but I still didn't see anything. And I thought that was really unusual because I'm trying not to even breathe because I don't want to make any noise. I don't want to, I don't want to mess anything up. I didn't know what was happening. It could have been nothing. I don't know, but I just found it really odd because there wasn't any place for them to hide. There wasn't any place for any animal to hide. It wouldn't have been, there just wasn't anywhere else you could see far enough.
Yeah.
It was just really unusual because I thought I should be seeing something, but I'm not.
Yeah. You're not the first person to experience that. These creatures are the master of hiding. Like I said, it's my theory, but it's the theory of a lot of people out there that they are self-aware of themselves and their environment.
Well, I absolutely agree and believe that. But there's a lot of theories. We don't know any factual things about it. I was just reading a little bit in the chat, and they were talking about where what Bigfoot was closest related to and things like that. We could say they were closer related to apes. We could say they're closer related to humans, but maybe they're not related to either of them at all. They could be their own thread that just has never been discovered yet, because I think we still find new animals and new creatures,
new species of
all the time. Thank you. Species all the time.
Yeah.
And so, like the Bigfoot phenomenon, the Dogman phenomenon, the pterodactyl that Jason said that he saw, all these different phenomenons, they could be a completely different species that isn't intermingling with any of the existing ones that we are aware of. I just wanted to throw that out there. We are past the hour. I do want to say thank you for coming on the show with us. We definitely had a great time.
Yes.
Everybody in chat, if you want us to get Mark back on, maybe do another Mark and Larry episode.
Yes. Yeah.
I ask you to go in the comments of this stream and just start blowing it up, saying bring Mark on, bring Mark and Larry on, and go blow up their channel too, and go over there and tell them to come back on Learning Bigfoot with TIPA TV as well, because
this has been amazing.
We want you guys to show us how much fun you had on this episode. We want you to show us how much fun you had just listening to Mark's stories and learning about us too, if you hadn't been here before. And,
thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And honestly, I already want Mark back on the show, but I want them to show us that, just because I'm greedy and I like.
We already know.
I like seeing those points of interest showing up on our channel.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I think we have a lot to learn from you still, Mark. And we're going to be staying in close touch with you, and we're going to be continuing to learn and grow. You do have me interested in going into the meat and eat, because I like eating. And the shout that I put out for everybody else that we want to go and do some more of these expeditions and everything. We just have to make sure that it's worthwhile. And what I mean by that is, it's expensive to drive across the country. I mean, we're based in Utah, but we're driving anywhere. I mean, we've been known to go all the way to Florida and obviously Oklahoma, and we just need to make sure it's worth our travel to go out, you know, we'll film it, we'll camp, we'll edit, we'll put everything together, we'll create the show for you guys. We'll share it through our perspective, and every time we go out and do it, I think it's going to be just a little bit better than the last because we're learning so much more.
Yeah.
I think we're learning that we need to have our cameras ready to go even first break of light because I saw something,
Right.
you know, we heard things and we were just kind of getting ready.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you guys are all interested in that, Misty said do an auction. I'm ready to paint for you. We still need to do an auction. But
I'm sorry. I'm going to interrupt you for 2 seconds. Right there. Hey.
There he is.
wow. All right. The last of the footage.
Of the 168, then off to bed. Busy man.
Heck yeah.
Thanks for popping in.
Absolutely. And I'm
can't wait.
still curious to know how Bigfoot Odyssey feels about our documentary.
Yes.
I'm curious to know what their side is because they've been working hard at the 168s for quite a while now.
I cannot wait to see this.
But again, I want to thank you, Mark. I want to thank everybody in chat that's been hanging out with us. You guys are amazing for coming and supporting us and Sawdustt Beast. Again, blow it up on our channel. Go over to his channel. He's over there. Go over to his channel and blow it up there.
For sure.
Say you want to see him back on this show because we want to have him back on the show. And if you want to see him and Larry, we know how those shows go because if you haven't been over there watching those shows, you don't want to miss that. they banter back and forth a lot, and I love the way that they work it. So, was there anything else you'd like to say to Mark?
I just want to say thank you again for coming on. It's been a pleasure. It's been an honor. We had such an amazing time. I've learned so much from you, and I can't wait till we do this again.
Yep, my friends. My friend.
So everybody else, you guys have a great evening, great night, great morning, wherever you are, and we will see you next Sunday.
Bye, guys.
Bye.